Late last year, I spent about 8 weeks bouncing around Japan and South Korea. So we did these in separate trips. We went to South Korea, went to Seoul, went to Busan, and then came back to Seoul again and lived in South Korea for a month. And we also spent some time in Tokyo, one of my favorite cities in the entire world, living in an apartment for 30 days. Now, the whole time that I was over there, I kept thinking about something that's taken me way too long to figure out in my own personal trading. Because here's the thing, right? And you can compare this to travel planning. Go to Japan isn't a plan. Go to South Korea is not a travel plan. Those are the travel destinations. They're easy, right? You can pick them easily. Anybody on a Saturday night with a glass of wine can choose the destination for their travel. Now, the actual trip, that's a different beast, right? The flights, the visas, packing, making sure you've got everything you need for work and for personal, the accommodation that doesn't disappear suddenly and stop replying on Airbnb at 11 p.m. just as you've arrived, how you're going to get around the city, right? What to do when the train that you're meant to catch from Tokyo airport gets cancelled just as you've arrived and you've got to figure out another way to get to the city centre. Now that's the system. And the system is what gets you from an apartment in Melbourne, Australia to the heart of Shin Okubo on a Saturday night. Now, it took me years and years to figure out that trading works exactly the same way as travel planning. Now, in this video, I'm going to walk you through something that cost me at least 10 grand to learn. Why a trading strategy is not a trading system. Why most beginners are solving the wrong problem to begin with. And what the actual system needs to look like, based on what I've had to build for myself after blowing up countless number of trading accounts. Video should take you about 15 minutes. Pour a coffee, strap in. All right, so here's where most of us start. You hear about trading and it sounds doable. You might buy a course, you might watch a YouTube video, you might buy some Telegram signals, and you get a strategy. A setup, a pattern, some basic entry rules if you're lucky. And off you go. You go ahead and try and trade it. Now, I did this for years. I had so many strategies that on paper, they looked great. They back tested fine. The setups looked legit. It all seemed like it was going to work out. But I could never seem to make money with these trading strategies. I'd take a couple of winners, feel like a genius, and then before I knew it, I had 6 losers in a row. My account had just taken a serious knock and I was back to the start again. Now, every time that this would happen to me, and this happened over and over and over, I would feel like the strategy was broken. So I'd go back and look for another one. I'd go and buy another course. I'd go and watch another YouTube video, and then another, and then another, and then over and over and over. Now, this cycle cost me probably conservatively 10 grand. And to be honest, I stopped counting after a point because it became really depressing. It took me such a long time to finally clock something that when I finally got it, wanted to slap myself in the face. I realized that these strategies were not broken, but I didn't have a trading system to wrap the strategy in. Now, picking a setup is like booking a flight. It's one piece of the overall system. It's also the bit that everyone gets excited about because it feels like it's the most important part. But if you turn up to the airport without a passport, without a prearranged visa, or your card gets declined the second that you land in this country, that perfect flight that you booked is pointless. And that's exactly what I was doing. I had the entry. My flight was booked, but I had no idea what I was meant to be doing with the rest of my day. I had no risk caps, no daily routine, and I did not have a clear set of rules that would separate an A+ setup from one that's a little bit, how you go. I had no way to know if I was actually following the plan and on the right track, or if I was just freestyling and winging it. So I had strategies, but I did not have a system. I said it before, but I'll say it again. Most people do not have a strategy problem. They have a system problem. Go and write that down if you need to, because that's something I really need you to understand. Now, here's the point where it gets a little bit weird, but this is what actually cracked it open for me. Now, a few years back, what I technically bought was a complete system. It was a mean reversion trading strategy. It had specific mechanical rules, clear predefined risk parameters, position sizing, how to handle drawdowns, the works. It was the lot. It was a complete system. Now, the problem I had was that by the time I got my hands on this trading system, the edge had been degraded. The markets had moved on and it was no longer profitable. So at this point, I'd now done both things and made mistakes. I had profitable strategies with no system built around them and blew up my accounts that way. And then I'd had a complete trading system that's edge had been degraded and was no longer profitable. And I followed it in a disciplined way all the way down to a perfect death. And after this is when it started to actually land for me. You need both. You need an edge in the market, backed by data that is proven to be profitable over a long period of time. But you also need a trading system that sits around that edge that can keep you protected from yourself when you're not your best. Now, if you miss either one, you're in trouble. Now, here's what I eventually figured out needs to be part of your trading system. This is just the stuff that I kept tripping over until finally I built it into the system. Now, the first thing, the system has to fit your actual life. I tried to be a day trader for a while, as you might have heard before. I spent hours locked at the screen. My wife would walk past or say something to me and I would barely even notice her. I was trying to force myself into a version of trading that just didn't fit me. And it didn't matter how good the setups were, I just could not sustain it. I'd burn out, miss trades, get emotional, and blow up my account. A system that doesn't fit the human that actually has to run it doesn't survive contact in real life. You can't out-discipline a bad fit. It's just not going to happen. It took me such a long time to accept that. Now, the second thing that you need is one pattern. One, especially for beginners. When I was beginning, I was collecting strategies like I was collecting Pokemon, right? Reversal strategies, mean reversion, momentum-based strategies, you name it, I traded it. And it felt smart. It felt like I was developing as a trader. I had a whole playbook in my arsenal. But every time I looked at a chart, there was 4 or 5 different things that I could be looking at, and I picked whichever fit my mood based on the day. And that is not a trading system. That's a buffet. When I finally narrowed it down to one clear, repeatable edge that I could identify in the markets, everything got quieter. Less to look at, less to second guess, less time spent staring at the screens. And most importantly, more reps on the one focused strategy. Now, you don't get good by collecting setups. You get good by executing one repeatable process over and over and over, by getting those reps in. As boring as that sounds for most people. Now, the third thing, actual rules. Yes or no. No maybes. When I'd write down my rules when I was beginning, they'd include words like usually, ideally, in the right context. That's not a rule, that's a vibe. An actual rule sounds like, if the pattern is there with these specific conditions, A, B, and C, if all of these conditions are met, then you have a valid setup. If they are not, then you don't. End of story, no interpretation, no discretion, no intuition involved. Now, I finally forced myself to write down clear mechanical rules that can be answered with yes or no. Most of my old setups suddenly disappeared and weren't actually setups, because I'd been calling them setups, but I was actually just trading on hope. Now, the fourth thing you need, and this is the one that cost me most of that 10 plus grand that I blew, is you need a clear risk system. This is not just stop losses or fixed position sizing. This is an entire risk framework that's built into your trading system. How much can I lose on a trade? How much can I lose in a week? How much can I lose in a month? How many losses can I take in a row? What happens after a 5% drawdown? When do I cut position size? When do I step away from the system entirely and decide that the edge is no longer valid? I had none of that. So when I hit a losing streak, which every trader will at some point, I just keep trading. Same size, same emotion, same setups, over and over, just hoping that something was going to improve. And that's exactly how strategies that look good on paper end up killing accounts. Now, the strategy didn't blow my account up. I blew my account up because there was nothing to stop me. Now, risk framework isn't there to protect you on your good days. It's to protect you from the version of you that shows up after you've had 3 losers in a row. The fifth thing that you need is a daily routine. Same time, same scan, same markets, same watch list, same entry checklist every day. Same way you even close down the laptop. This is not because a routine is some kind of moral virtue. It's because a routine kills decision fatigue. If I'm deciding what to look at, what markets I'm scanning, what setups I'm trading today, what my bias is for the week, I'm using up my mental capacity on these unnecessary decisions. That's mental capacity that I need to execute my system effectively. Now, real system tells you what to do before you're tired, before you're tapped out and emotional, and before your wife asks you what's for dinner. The sixth thing you need is to make sure you are tracking the right thing. I was tracking P&L. Of course I was. Everyone tracks P&L. But P&L is often just noise in the short term when you zoom in. Now, a bloke, and I did it plenty of times, can make money on a Tuesday even though he's broken every rule in his system. And a bloke can also lose money on a Wednesday when he's doing everything perfectly. This is why P&L is not the only thing that's important to track. What I should have been tracking and what I track now is my execution standard. Did I follow the plan? Did I take valid setups only? Did I follow my risk framework rules? Did I respect my stop losses? Did I let trades play out? Did I walk away when the system told me to walk away? You can be a profitable trader even though you're executing terribly. But I can tell you now, it doesn't last. And the last one for today, and this is the one that haunted me for the longest, stop rebuilding. Every time I had a bad week or a bad month, I would change everything and rebuild from the ground up. New strategy, new entries, new markets, new time frame, new indicator, new course, new everything. And this meant that I never gave anything enough time to actually prove itself, or to prove to me that I was the broken bit and it wasn't the strategy. Because that can often be the other half of this. Sometimes it's not the strategy that's broken, it's you. But the fact is that you can't improve on a system that you keep abandoning. You can't even measure it. You need enough reps on the same system so that you can make a decision based on that larger sample size of data. And most beginners can't sit still long enough to gather enough data. This is the exact lens that I'm using as I build out the 3XP Academy. It's not how do I make this sound impressive. It's not how many setups or hours of videos can I cram into a course. The real question is, can a normal person with a normal life and a normal job and normal family commitments actually execute this system consistently for the next 10 years and stand to tell the tale? That's the only question that matters to me. So the entire academy is built around a single pattern that I've spent years validating. Yes or no rules, a risk framework that isn't optional, a daily routine that fits into an actual life, maximum 1 hour per day. No signals, no Discord pinging you at 3 a.m. for an alert, no living on charts, no predictions. It's an overall operating system for trading, not just another trading course with a few setups bolted inside it. And honestly, the more I work on it, the more I realize this is the bit that nobody wants to sell. Because the system part of it is boring. The setups are what's sexy. The setups are what people click on. But the setup alone is not what makes you money. It's the system that sits around it. The setup just gives you a piece of the pie. So look, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you got a ton of value out of this. Rewatch it if you need to. Ensure that you're following those 7 steps to putting together an overall trading system and not too focused on simply the strategy. And if any of this is hitting and you want to find out a little bit more information around the 3XP Academy, the pattern, the rules, the blueprint, the daily routine, the support structure, and how that all ties in to install an operating system into your life, then there's a link in the description if you want to go and take a look. No pressure either way, but if this is the way that you want to trade, one single pattern, one clear blueprint to follow that encompasses all of your risk parameters, and one clear 60-minute daily routine, then that's the next logical step. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.